And so on one level, like I guess a lot of people were looking at him as kind of like they're not were they do you think they were looking at him as a spiritual leader at that time?
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. And I mean, I'll state for the record. I mean, I really love Pat. I mean, I would in a position to take a bullet for him, and I would have done it in a heartbeat.
right.
Um, he was a very complicated man. He was born into aristocracy, pretty much. I don't know if people know it, but he was blood related to two former presidents, William Henry Harrison and Benjamin Harrison. His mother was related to Winston Churchill through her
Well,
lineage. His dad was a lifelong senator from Virginia, a U.S. senator, and he was pretty much an aristocrat. He gave all that up at one point, had a conversion experience, and he started CBN with $3. Opened his first bank account for the Christian Broadcasting Network with $3. In fact, he was overdrawn by $4 because the checks for the business cost him $7. So, you know, he had a really strong heart for people. When I got there, I mean, he had a lot of outreach. He had a thing called Operation Blessing, which was a non-government organization that if there was a hurricane or flood or something down south, they had trucks standing by, and that typically be the first boots on the ground to go in and help people. He had
wow.
literacy programs. I mean, it did a lot of good things for people, and I mean, I felt very honored to be chosen. Basically, what happens, I worked for a period of time. I left CBN to work on a film for my student teachings, came back, and I had started an animation studio for CBN. And I got a call one day and asked me to come over to Pat's office again. I said, well, that can't be good because Pat doesn't call anybody over there for good news. And I got there and he comes out and he says, well, David, he says, Jim Small, who was the predecessor at security, he just quit. And he says, there's only one person at CBN that can keep me alive, and it's you. And would you find me a replacement for Jim or take over? I said, Pat, I'd be honored. So I phased back into it.
Right.
And that was, of course, later on in the thing. But during the early years, Pat was just, I mean, a rock solid father figure to a lot of people.
Wow, this
And
is one of the reasons that I really wanted to chat with you because my only awareness really of Pat Robertson, again, is this funny odd guy on TV who is kind of like yelling and half preaching and running a talk show kind of, and then
yeah,
later on, and that was kind of like, okay, he's just this person, and later on he became like kind of a lunatic that I'd see saying something like there was a hurricane because there's gay people, and I'm like, okay, that guy's hit him now. Okay, so like my awareness of him is really like touch points that I would see, around on the news or wherever. And so I wanted to get a different perspective from you because you
yeah,
being so close to him, and it seems like you ran the full gamut of like knowing him as this good, strong person who is trying to do good in the world, and kind of seeming like turning into one of the biggest grifters in America from some of the things I've read.
you know what? That's a really good assessment. And you're a very, very bright young man to pick that up. Yeah, because, excuse me, people really judged Pat from the 1 hour a day, 5 days a week that he came into people's living rooms. And he's a very charming man, very charismatic man, very intelligent, very articulate. But the other 23 hours of the day, he kind of got out on the fringes sometimes and very opinionated. And at the risk of offending people that love Pat Roberts, Pat was definitely a very strong homophobe.